did you get into fitness? I know you've got quite a lengthy career in it.
Yeah, so I've been a personal trainer now for about, I think around 8 years, which in the world of personal training, I think it makes you a veteran. Like if
Oh
you
yeah,
make it
one
over like
year.
3 or 4 yeah, it really is. It's quite sad. So yeah, I started personal training about 8 years ago. I was an occupational therapist before that. So I worked as an OT for about 3 years before thinking, this isn't what I want to do with my life. Let's try something new. And I didn't think fitness would be that, if I'm completely honest. This was supposed to be a bit of a stopgap whilst I figured out what I wanted to do with my life. And yeah, 8 years later, I absolutely love it. So I did that usual working in a big box gym for a few years before starting up my own company. I ran an in-person personal training company, had a few trainers working for me, and then slowly transitioned into online coaching. And as my social media presence started to grow a little bit, I kind of ditched all of the in-person coaching that I was doing, and now I'm completely online. So I run an online personal training business, online nutrition coaching business. I do kind of working with everyday people on general health and well-being, and then I also work with a few performance athletes.
How has your approach kind of evolved in how you teach fitness and how you teach nutrition from then, where often they kind of tell you the way they want things, where you don't really choose your clients, to now? Because 8 years is a long time.
Yeah, it's changed massively. I was definitely kind of in that box of gym bro when I first started, like just kind of the usual approach that every personal trainer is told that they're supposed to take, like everyone you see, they're going to want weight loss, and this is what you do with them, and you stick them on a restrictive diet, and you make them do hours of cardio. And yeah, I definitely was in that camp when I started. Maybe not too extreme. I like to think that I've always had a bit of balance to my practice, but I definitely did sit in that camp, and it's just been a really slow progression. I know some people who work within this space that we're in now, the kind of content and messaging that we're putting out, they usually have like a moment or something that's happened in their life that causes them to go down this path. But mine wasn't that at all. I've always had like a fairly good relationship with food and exercise, maybe not so much with my body, but definitely with food and exercise. And it's just been a really slow progression of being really evidence-based, working with some brilliant clients who have been really honest with me and my approach and what's been really helpful, and just speaking with other brilliant coaches that are working within this space. And I feel like I've just slowly refined what I'm doing. And now after 8 years, I finally feel like I'm actually making a difference to people's lives and improving their kind of knowledge and relationship with food and exercise.
Yeah. Well, every post that I've seen you do, every reel, it always you leave feeling a little bit lighter and more inspired about fitness and food. It's not the shaming that you so often find. And I really found it interesting because you're a guy doing this. There's a lot of women in this space who are trying to promote more of a balanced relationship with your body and health, but not as many men. So I'm curious, like how do you find that? Like, what's the general reception been to the content you produce? Do you get trolls? Like, what happens?
Yeah, I mean the reception is usually great from women. I get very few women trolling my content, but so many guys, and nearly they're always gym bros with their tops off and flexing in their profile pictures. It's really sad. I don't know. It's not a manly thing what I'm doing, is it? I'm telling people to really think about their mental health and their bodies and how they're feeling, and it's just not the approach that the fitness industry is pushing. So I do get a lot of pushback from that. Like I'm happy for people to criticize my approach as a practitioner. That's cool. I can back up everything that I'm doing. But yeah, some of them get quite personal and quite mean, which is not nice. But it's just unfortunately just comes with the territory, doesn't it? With social media. But yeah, the response I get from guys is actually just pretty sad. And I truly think that this approach works for everyone, not just women. It's men and women that would really benefit from taking a healthier and more balanced approach to their diet and exercise. But there just seems to be this barrier there that guys are a little bit less receptive to it.
Well, that kind of circles it back to the athlete side that I wanted to ask you with, because if you are working with athletes on their performance, the old school way was we're going to track everything and do it very precise, that's the approach. And I'm wondering, how do you manage that then? Because you want them to perform better and you also want them to have a balanced view of health. Is there any sort of difficulty there, or how do you make sure that you do both? I don't know if I'm wording that well, but you get the
No,
general.
you are, and it's really difficult, you know? It is a challenge, and I think you just have to be really honest with the athletes that you're working with. Because I work with some people who are kind of your everyday athletes who just want to get better for marathons or triathlons or whatever, and that you can be quite balanced and healthy with it. But then I also work with some top-level athletes, like I'm working with a para-alpine skiing duo at the moment who are looking to get to the Paralympic Games, you know? And when you're working at that level as an athlete, I think you just have to accept that a lot of the practices that you're implementing are just not going to be healthy. And I think you have to have that word with the people that you're working with. Say, yes, I'm willing to do this with you, but I want you to acknowledge that this isn't the way that you should eat or the way that you should exercise forever, because it's not sustainable and it's not healthy in any way. So yeah, you kind of have to unfortunately accept that with high level sport comes really unhealthy, disordered behaviors. And I just think if we can point that out more often to people, it could be really helpful, because people still look up to athletes now and think that they are the pinnacle of health and wellness, when in fact a lot of them are just really over restricting, over exercising. Their mental health is in the toilet. Like, you look at the amount of eating disorders that are amongst professional athletes, and it is terrifying. So why are we now putting the way that they eat and exercise as what we should all be striving to achieve? We absolutely shouldn't.
I like that you mentioned this idea of pointing out it's not forever, these practices, that they're not sustainable, that the athlete knows that, because the layperson doesn't a lot of times, right? They take these really high level, elite, restrictive practices designed to win competitions. And then they try to bring it to their everyday when they're just trying to go for a run or make, meal prep for the week. Like, they're taking these really restrictive things. So how do you communicate that with just non-athlete clients, let's say?
Yeah, I mean, I put myself in that bracket, you know, like I exercise for kind of building strength or muscle or performance, but I'm still like an everyday athlete. I'm not going to be breaking any world records, so that's fine. I don't know, it's really difficult because you also look at even like higher level sport, you see some of the advice that's still being given to really young athletes. Like, I've worked with a lot of kind of athletes in their teens who are kind of looking to break into the sports at a higher level. And some of the things they're being told to do by their coaches is like, a lot of the female athletes that I work with, they haven't had a period for months, and they think that this is normal because they are still exercising and eating what they're being told they should be eating. And that's just, it shouldn't be acceptable, but unfortunately it is. And yeah, I don't know what the answer is there, other than us just slowly plugging away and trying to tell people that it does not have to be like this.
Yeah. Well, what are some of the practices do you think that we tend to take, or the fitness industry kind of pushes on people, just everyday athletes or everyday people, that are toxic? Maybe some of which are really obvious, but other ones where you don't necessarily really realize that they are damaging.
So many.
Yes,
So
we would be
many.
an hour.
Yeah, there's like pretty much every approach that they're told. Yeah, I don't know whether it's from like a nutrition standpoint of being told that you have to track everything you're eating all of the time to make progress, just isn't true. And then the other thing I think that's mostly neglected is just how much rest is required to perform really well. We're constantly told, do more, train more, lift weights, cardio, and I don't think people truly appreciate how much rest should be playing into an exercise program. Yeah, if you're not giving yourself at least 1 or 2 days rest a week, even if you think that you're a very healthy and active and high performing person, then your progress is never going to be as good as it should be.
Yeah, this is such a key point, because that's something, the disordered view of fitness, of having always this high intensity all the time, is not as pointed out. I think people are starting to notice with nutrition some of the very intense and dogmatic sayings or philosophies or diets. But with fitness, it's a little bit harder, because fitness is good for your stress, right? It's good to work out hard and get that stress out. It's good to be moving. It's good to be exercising all the time. But there is a balance that can be easily overstepped.
Yeah, it's so true. But I think it's because we're constantly told that the way that our body looks is our measure of what health is. So people are always striving for this ideal that we see on social media that just isn't achievable by 99% of the general population. So they keep thinking, oh, I'm clearly not doing enough, so I need to work harder to achieve this body that I see. And it's just the worst way to measure success. So once again, like the messaging I put out regularly and a lot of other great coaches are putting out regularly, it's like moving away from this image obsessed focus when it comes to fitness. Like, the further we move away from that, the better.
Why do you think it is that these body shapes and these goals that we have physically are so unattainable for most people? Because some people listening, this might be the first time they heard that oh wait, that hourglass shape
Yeah.
is not for everyone just because you do 7 days a week and eat salad. Like I think it's important to hear that and to explain that a bit if you could.
Yeah, I genetics plays such a huge role in the way that your body should look, and that's not spoken about enough once again, you know? Like there's so many physiques I used to look up to when I first got into strength training or fitness. Like I used to have on my phone background a physique that I really liked of this guy. I can't even remember his name. It was quite a few years
It
ago.
wasn't Mr.
And
Motivator,
looking
was it?
no, it wasn't Mr. Motivator. This is a throwback to before our conversation, just for anyone listening. Go Google Mr. Motivator, and he's an absolute TV legend in the UK. And no, he was an ex-football player turned wrestler. Someone listening might know his name, and he was clearly taking steroids when I look back on it now. So I was kind of striving for this image, like if I work hard, this is what I can look like. And I just never in a million years, if I was doing it naturally, would have been able to achieve that physique. So it's yeah, genetics plays such a huge part, and yeah, I don't know. It's unfortunately just everything around health and fitness is image focused. Like people try and sell you an exercise program, these are before and after photo. They try and sell you a new diet, they give you a before and after photo, or someone really lean on the front of it that's like this is how you will look if you follow this diet, and it's just never going to happen for the large majority of
Yeah,
people.
this was a post that you talked about that really resonated when I was reading it. This idea of a lot of fitness professionals are more concerned with getting that proof of the before and after than they are with
Mhm.
helping you with a sustainable journey. And I think unfortunately that's true across the world.
I think it is. I think it is. And I'll still get messages from people who are looking for a personal trainer like, "Oh, do you have any pictures of the results you've achieved with your clients?" And I'm like, "No, I don't, because that's not the way that I work." And before and after photos, like, if you want to use them, that's fine. Like if that's what progress is to you, fantastic. But I truly believe that personal trainers should never be posting before and after photos on social media ever. It encourages a comparison, first of all, which is never healthy. It encourages us to solely focus on the way that someone looks as our measurement of what is healthy, which just isn't true. And then it never gives you the complete picture either. I'm sure if you did an after photo, those photos would look nothing like each other once again. So it's just incredibly short sighted, and it's yeah one of the reasons that I bang on about before and after photos so often.
This is, but it's an important point because too, not only would 3, 6 months after that after photo look different potentially, and a lot of times because we've seen the statistics of people after diets going back and overeating. So we know that that changes. But just as an anecdote, I've mentioned on the show before, there's a very popular UK fitness program that I will not name because I don't want to get sued. My husband
What does it sound like? Because I need to know which one it is.
But I don't wanna, because what I'm about to say is disparaging, but it is true.
Okay.
And my husband
Mhm.
did this program before our wedding because he even opted into this, "Oh, it's wedding time, I gotta get, fit, etcetera."
Mhm.
And this is even with me having a very balanced approach to health and saying, "No, don't do this." And he did it, and the program was actually, I will say this, I will admit, very balanced. I was eating some good stuff. Some of it was a little too extreme, no salt, not any sugar, but the meals were actually pretty good. And then 3 weeks before they were supposed to do their after photo, they were told to only eat white meat and veggies for every meal. And he got so ill after a week of this that he couldn't continue. But it's for the after photo, right? Because you strip off everything in those 3 weeks. But who's gonna eat that way
Mhm.
forever? No one. No one.
Yeah, it's I need to get the name of this afterwards because I'm intrigued to know which one it is. But yeah, it's really sad. It is really sad because a coach will love posting up a before and after photo on their website because it really does help sell within personal training. Like taking the approach that I'm doing is really bad for business because it's really tough to sell personal training, right? If if a one trainer is saying, "Look, come work with me for 6 weeks and you'll look like this," and then you have me being like, "Oh, we'll work together for a few months and I'll build your relationship with food and help you find a way of exercising." Like it just doesn't sell at all. Most of the people that work with me have followed me for like a year to 2 years, and they've kind of bought into the approach that people should be taking, and that's how that works. But so you can see why new coaches go down that route and use before and after photos to sell their services, because it works, so it's hopefully just going to be a bit of a shift in the fitness industry.
Recognizing that as human beings, feeling progress is important. How do you do that without the usual metrics?
It's really difficult. So still the large majority of people that reach out for personal training, they want weight loss. Like off the bat, they just want weight loss. Like I'd say that over 90% of the inquiries that I get is for people wanting weight loss. So it is really difficult to completely go against the grain in the industry. The way that I like to do it is I like to say, that's cool. Like if that's one of your goals, that's amazing, but I'm not going to focus on that if you're working with me. Like we're going to completely switch things up, and we're going to focus on, we don't think about taking away things from your diet. We're going to say, right, how can we improve this, and what can we add into your diet? And off the bat, you're starting from a really positive place. And that's the same with exercise as well. It doesn't have to be focusing on just, is the scale dropping? Are the tape measurements dropping? Are the progress photos showing progress? We can focus on strength. We can focus on how confident you're feeling in yourself. Like, how's your mental health? How's your sleep? Like all these different factors that you can focus on, they can completely just make the training process something really positive and something that you want to do literally for the rest of your life, rather than for a 6, 10, 12-week plan that someone's trying to sell you. And as I said, it is such a tough sell to take someone down that route. And the large majority of people that come to me for weight loss, and I ask them to not focus on that entirely, don't want to work with me because that's all they want to focus on, which is quite sad. So yeah, I wish I had the answers there, but I don't,
Well,
unfortunately.
I think that you do have the answers, that focusing on things like your strength gains and your energy gains and your sleep and your stress management. I mean, all of that stuff is fairly quantifiable, or at least subjectively, right? How you felt
Mhm.
before versus 3 months later. But it's not the same as
Yeah,
stepping on a scale and having the instant validation, is it? That's the hardest
yeah,
part.
yeah. It is so much more difficult when you're doing it like that. And I don't know. Like once again, we just need more coaches banging that drum, of pushing people down the more sustainable route, and then hopefully the message slowly gets out there. I Yeah, I truly believe like this is the approach that everyone should be taking. Like the sooner people realize that there is no one best diet for everyone to follow, like you truly just have to find what works for you as an individual. Like there is no exercise you have to be doing. You can literally do any type of exercise that you like and enjoy. And as soon as we start like encouraging people to move away from these like cookie cutter guides that everyone is usually following, the better off everyone's going to feel.
Is there anything, and I recognize that you will have studied and done the exam years ago, but if you were to create a new certification, right, under the guidelines of what we're talking about, that is more holistic, that is more sustainable, what are some of the things that you would add in, and what are some of the things that you would take out from the existing way that we're taught as personal trainers and fitness professionals?
That's a really cool
Yeah,
question.
we're going to design a program like that.
And yeah, let's start a new business up. Let's do it. So let's focus on what I take away first of all. I think just a lot of the weight loss and body type chat that seems to be in all of these certifications still. I mean, I did mine once, as we said, a few years ago now, so a lot might have changed. But there's such a big focus on like different body types and how you need to adapt things to different body types, as if people are just ectomorph, mesomorph, and endomorph, or whatever. Like it. Yeah, I just think if we can move away from that as much as possible, that would be fantastic. I'm trying to think what I'd add in there. It's so difficult, isn't it? And I think that's the problem, because there is no one way to do this, and you have to look at the person in front of you as an individual. I think that maybe that's what I would add in. There we go. It's just to kind of have like a section on most of what you've just been taught probably doesn't matter. Like you're told that, right, this person's going to come to you and this is going to be their goals and this is the approach you take. It just doesn't work like that. Like every single client that I work with has a completely different approach that we're running with, and that should be embraced. That makes personal training fun. There's nothing worse than people coming into you and you sending out a meal plan that everyone's following. Like that's just not the way that health and fitness should be. So it's why I've kind of taken this weird approach that I have, like going from slightly bro being, I like to think, very evidence-based trainer to now sitting in mostly the space on the other side. The reason I do further study on the performance nutrition side is I like to know how all of this works because I do think it's really important. Like I understand the biochemistry of nutrition. Most of my clients don't give a damn about it and don't want to hear anything about it, but I know how this is going to impact someone and make them feel from the way that they're eating.
What does someone do who's dealing with disordered eating that wants to go back to eating in a healthy, balanced way? Maybe they've been managing the disordered eating, they've been going to therapy, etc. Like, how do they make that first step back? This is a huge question I'm throwing at you.
No, it's tough. And once again, it'll be quite different for everyone. I think food diaries can be an amazing tool initially for people to keep. And I know that as soon as you mention a food diary, people think, oh, that's obsessive, writing down everything that you're eating. That sounds really unhealthy. But I strongly believe that you can do that in a more relaxed and balanced way than being on MyFitnessPal and it telling you that you have to eat 1,200 calories a day. You know, like there's a big difference between those two things. And sometimes just the process of writing down the food that you're eating, even just if you use like the notes section on your phone, don't measure food out or anything like that. Just actually make a note of the meals that you've had. You can start to highlight areas that might be lacking within your diet. You might be like, oh, that didn't have very much protein in my breakfast or lunch. And maybe if I included a bit more there, I might feel a little bit more energized and I might recover better from the exercise sessions that I'm doing. And I think that that can be a really good starting point. And if you don't know how to do that or what the purpose is of doing that, then reach out to people that will want to help you, like yourself or me on social media. Like I speak to new people every day that I have nothing to do with. They're not paying me for work. Like they're just sending me messages for some ideas. Like I love it. And that can be a really cool starting point. So I would say it's better to search out people that make you feel comfortable and make you feel safe in the approach that you want to take, and then just bombard them with questions when you need
I
help.
think that's a good
Yeah.
approach. Well, I've got last question for
Yeah.
you before asking where everyone can find you, which is, what is the question you wish that people would ask you more, be it clients or anyone about health, fitness, mental health, anything in the whole health arena?
Is why don't I talk about weight altering behaviors? First of all, there are far too many people talking about weight loss on social media that it is like I don't follow people that talk about weight loss because it makes me feel really bad about my mental health. And I'm someone who's in a body size that is told that this is what fitness is supposed to look like, you know? So if it's making me feel like crap, like what's it making people in larger bodies feel like? I can't even begin to like imagine how they're feeling. But then I also think that more people need to realize that you can massively, massively improve your health without focusing on your weight. I think that people in larger bodies think that, sadly, that they cannot be healthy because they're in a larger body and that's it. Whereas if you make improvements to your diet and you make improvements to your exercise routine, you can massively improve your health, even if there's absolutely no change to the size of your body. And that's why I don't like to focus on that on social media, for those kind of two reasons. So
I've heard people in bigger bodies say this to me, that a lot of health advice or fitness advice they'd like to follow, things about handstands or whatever, it doesn't even need to be handstands, but they don't feel that they can because their goal is not weight loss. Maybe they don't want it to be. So I think that's great.
yeah, it's so true. And some of the people that I work with who are the strongest, who are the fittest, do not look like they are the strongest or the fittest if you compare them to kind of the societal norms or the fitness industry norms, you know? And it's another reason, just to bang on about before and after photos again, by putting up a before and after photo, you're telling people that are following you that, oh, if your body is like the before photo, then your body is wrong and bad, you know? And I just don't think that that should be the case at all.
Powerful one to end on. So last and final question is, where can everyone connect with you? What are the different ways they can find, work with you, learn more?
Yeah, so most of the content I put out is on Instagram. The large majority I put on is Instagram, and that's just my name. So Michael Ulloa, then PT. You pronounce my surname far more beautifully than I say it. So I might just get you to plug my social media channels from now on, if that's okay. So yeah, Michael Ulloa PT on Instagram. It's also the same on TikTok and Twitter as well, that I'm occasionally on. And then my website is just literally my name, michaelulloa.com. And I do one-to-one coaching if that's what you want. I also run a kind of diet culture free fitness community called Nourish, Move, and Maintain. I run that with a brilliant coach, Amy Snelling. So she's on social media. I'm going to plug her as well, actually. So Amy Snelling PT, and that's her handle on Instagram. She's awesome. Go give her a follow. She's also spreading a really positive message about health and fitness.